All right, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving deep into the absolute high-stakes logistical journey of cell and gene therapies. We're going to track these incredibly complex living treatments straight from the manufacturing lab all the way to the patient's vein. And look, we all know this isn't your typical supply chain. This is a high-wire act where human lives literally hang in the balance.
Let's just think about this for a second. Delivering standard, off-the-shelf pharmaceuticals, honestly, it's pretty straightforward. But cell and gene therapies demand a level of precision that makes traditional shipping look like a breeze. We're talking about incredibly time-sensitive, often patient-specific therapies that have to be frozen at cryogenic temperatures. The margin for error here? It's virtually zero.
So here is our roadmap for mapping out this critical vein-to-vein timeline. We'll hit the foundation of stability, surviving the cold chain, the transit gauntlet, and finally, the final mile.
Okay, let's jump into Section 1, Foundation of Stability, and the unique challenges for CGTs right in the lab.
To really understand this entire journey, we have to start at the source, the lab. Now, for cell and gene therapies, the rules for stability are completely unique. With standard drugs, you can often lean on accelerated testing just for convenience, right? Well, not here. Living therapies rely strictly on real-time data under their actual intended storage conditions to justify their shelf life claims. Sure, accelerated studies might give you some early supportive signals, but that real-time data, that is the ultimate truth.
And a really critical concept we've got to highlight here is in-use stability, often called post-thaw stability. Because so many of these therapies are cryopreserved, this defines the exact amount of time a prepared product remains viable after it's been thawed, diluted, or reconstituted. It dictates a super strict administration window based entirely on realistic handling conditions at the clinic. It is never, ever based on what just happens to be convenient for the hospital's schedule.
And it's not just about temperature. Manufacturers absolutely have to prove that the packaging itself maintains a protective barrier for the whole shelf life. That's your container closure integrity. Plus, they need specialized potency indicating methods just to catch any biological degradation. The catch? These batches are insanely small. We're sometimes talking about a handful of vials. You can't just test everything exhaustively, so you have to get creative with risk-based strategies like matrixing and bracketing to prove stability without using up all your precious material. Oh, and if you want a shelf life extension down the road, you're going to need even more real-time data at that extended time point to get it.
Moving right along to Section 2, Surviving the Cold Chain, Preserving Complex Biology.
So, once those strict stability limits are defined in the lab, we transition into the physical world and the intense, freezing reality of the cold chain. Keeping complex biology alive means managing two main environments. You've got your cryogenic storage, usually liquid nitrogen vapor phase, which is the gold standard for long-term storage of cryopreserved cell and gene products. And then you have ultra-low temperature mechanical freezers. Those are generally kept for specific formulations that maybe don't need those extreme cryogenic temperatures.
Now, to safely move these fragile therapies across the world, the industry leans heavily on dry shippers. These things are modern marvels, honestly. They can maintain cryogenic conditions for days without needing to be plugged into any external power source. But, and this is a big but, you can't just blindly trust the box. You have to do rigorous temperature mapping to absolutely guarantee that the equipment is going to hold that required range on its own.
All right, Section 3, the Transit Gauntlet, Excursions and Chain of Identity.
We are now entering what is arguably the most high-risk phase of this whole journey. Out here in transit, it isn't just about keeping things cold. For autologous therapies, it is entirely about flawlessly linking a specific batch to one specific patient. That's your chain of identity. You have to thoroughly qualify your courier's capabilities to maintain both the physical conditions and that traceability. The entire transport setup must securely marry temperature monitoring with strict patient identity verification. And keep in mind, hiring a specialized, qualified courier, that complements your in-transit monitors. It definitely doesn't replace them.
Let's run through a quick hypothetical. Imagine our educational case study, Asteria Advanced Therapeutics. Say their cryogenic shipment of a really sensitive AAV gene therapy experiences a brief temperature excursion while in transit. You can't just guess what to do next. A very strict sequence has to kick in. You immediately document the event. You gather every piece of monitor and product stability data you have, you scientifically assess the impact, and only then do you make a documented risk-based disposition decision.
The absolute most crucial takeaway here is that there is no automatic default to just go ahead and administer the product, or simply throw it away.
Excursions demand proactive, documented response plans. You literally cannot improvise after a deviation happens because an actual patient's safety is hanging on whatever decision you make.
Which brings us to our final leg, Section 4, the final mile, clinical site administration readiness.
So the logistical journey finally wraps up at the clinical site. But honestly, human factors and facility readiness right here at the finish line can completely make or break this multi-million-dollar process. Before any therapy even gets close to a patient, the site has to clear a massive readiness checklist. They have to nail the receipt reconciliation against the shipment records, they have to maintain qualified storage, and they absolutely must execute highly specific, validated thawing procedures within that strict administration window we talked about earlier. Training the site staff isn't just checking a box, it's a vital, critical control point.
And here's something that kind of blows my mind and surprises a lot of people: device compatibility. I'm talking about the specific infusion sets, the catheters, the needles. The wrong choice here can directly impact cell viability or vector integrity. A single incompatible needle picked out of a supply closet by clinical operations can literally destroy the biological activity of the therapy right before it enters the patient. That is exactly why device selection has to be explicitly mapped out and assessed.
Now we also have to plan for the unexpected. What if the product doesn't end up being used? Even if an autologous product is being returned or is slated for destruction, that chain of identity has to remain totally unbroken until the very end. You must continue handling it in a way that preserves its identity. You have to document exactly what was destroyed, the exact timestamp, and the authorized personnel involved before finalizing those disposition records.
Because a failure in disposal documentation, it's not just a paperwork glitch. If you have accountability gaps and you somehow lose track of patient-specific genetic material at the very end of the process, it completely undermines confidence in the entire chain of identity system. Total accountability is 100% mandatory from start to finish.
So, bringing this all together, from the incredibly strict lab stability limits through the deep freeze of the cold chain, all the way to that final thaw at the clinic, every single touchpoint is a critical control. Deviations in this space are never just logistical headaches. They are profound, critical patient safety risks for individuals who are desperately waiting for a life-saving therapy.
Which leaves me with a final, really important question for you to ponder. As these incredible cell and gene therapies continue scaling out to new clinical sites all over the globe, how will our logistical infrastructures and cold chain controls evolve to guarantee that zero failures occur in that fragile final mile? It is an immense challenge for sure, but one this industry absolutely has to master. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep questioning the science.